This video is basically about the top 5 worst times in human history.
There have been moments in Earth's history where being alive was almost impossible. Periods where the planet turned against everything on it and survival became the most important part. These are the 5 worst times to have been alive on Earth, starting with the least terrible and ending with the one that almost ended everything. At number 5, the Ice Age, 20,000 years ago. If you were
Boy, that would have sucked around that time. Think about it. I don't know if the Ice Age would be necessarily the worst time to be alive, but I mean, it had to be one of the worst times to be alive for sure, just because of the simple fact everything was super cold. Everything was super icy, you know what I'm saying? Like, so who would want to be around in a time where everything is just super cold like that, you know?
For a human being during the last glacial maximum, the planet looked nothing like it does today. Ice sheets 2 miles thick covered most of North America and Northern Europe. Global temperatures were about 6 degrees Celsius colder than today, and the sea level was so low that you could walk from Russia to Alaska without getting your feet wet. Most of the
And that's why I think that we're real fortunate to be alive in today's world, because we don't have to live in no crazy time like those times where like a whole ice age, you know?
planet was either frozen or drying out because the ice locked up so much water that rainfall dropped everywhere. Your daily goal was to survive. You lived in a group of maybe 30 to 50 people, and you wore animal hides stitched together with bone needles, and your home was either a cave or a shelter made from mammoth bones and skins. Food meant hunting animals that were actively trying to kill you. Woolly mammoths weighed around 6 tons. Cave lions were bigger than any lion today. Short-faced bears stood over 3 meters tall on their hind legs.
Yeah, everything was way bigger back then. Like you know, the animals were way bigger.
And could outrun you on open ground. Cave hyenas hunted in packs, and you were going after these things with sharpened sticks and rocks because, unfortunately, that's all you had. But the winter was the real killer. In Northern Europe and Asia, temperatures regularly dropped below minus 30 degrees Celsius. The sun was up for maybe 6 hours a day if you were lucky. Finding enough calories to keep your body warm meant eating roughly 3,000 to 4,000 calories daily, which is pretty difficult when the most of the landscape is frozen and the animals you need to eat are better hunters than you are. If the predators didn't get you, infection probably would. A cut from
And then you know it's freezing cold around that time, so just imagine you had to hunt for them animals and everything like that, you know, in order to eat and everything like that. So just imagine how like cold you are just running around every day looking for animals and stuff like that.
a flint tool, a broken bone from a fall, a bite from something you were trying to eat, any of these could kill you because antibiotics wouldn't exist for another 19,900 years. So your life expectancy was somewhere around 30 to 35 years, and most people weren't that lucky. But at least humans survived this. They adapted, invented better tools, mastered fire, and eventually the ice melted and the world warmed up. The Ice Age was brutal, but it is nothing compared to everything else on this list. At number 4, the Late Jurassic, 150 million years ago. Forget about being human for this one because we did.
Now this one is real crazy because this is the one that interested me the most, probably, is the Late Jurassic part. You know what I'm saying? Because the thing is about this topic with the Jurassic one is that dinosaurs had to face extinction. You know, they literally went through extinction. So how did humans live? How did humans outlive the dinosaurs when the dinosaurs went extinct after the asteroid impacted the Earth? That's a question I always had.
Didn't exist yet. You're a small mammal, maybe the size of a little shrew, living in a world that was not built for you. The Late Jurassic was the golden age of dinosaurs, and everything was massive. The average temperature was around 20 degrees Celsius globally, there was no ice anywhere on the planet, and the continents were arranged in ways that would make a modern map completely useless. North America alone had over 40 known dinosaur species living at the same time. Allosaurus, the dominant predator, weighed around 1.7 tons and accounted for 75% of all carnivore fossils found in in the Morrison Formation. But Allosaurus wasn't even the biggest predator around. Saurophaganax weighed up to 5 tons. Torvosaurus weighed around 4.
They had all these different dinosaurs that literally went extinct. How did any human outlive these massive creature dinosaurs, bro? Like, that's what I'm saying. We must have had some good hiding spots or something.
And there were at least 10 different species of theropod predators sharing the same ecosystem that could eat you in seconds. And the herbivores were no safer to be around either. Sauropods like Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus weighed around 13 to 70 tons and could step on you the way you'd step on an ant. But the droughts made things even worse. The late Jurassic experienced severe dry seasons where water sources shrank and every animal in the ecosystem crowded around whatever was left. Fossil evidence from these drought periods shows extreme levels of cannibalism among theropods, predators attacking other predators, and scavenging on a scale that turned watering holes into killing grounds. Mammals lived in the shadow of animals that could crush them by accident, waiting for a chance that wouldn't come until an asteroid cleared the entire board. At number 3, the
And you see that asteroid was literally no joke. You know, that asteroid was able to eliminate all kind of dinosaurs that were living on Earth at the time. So I mean, that's crazy, bro.
End Cretaceous, 66 million years ago. This is the one that everyone knows about, but most people don't understand how bad it actually was. An asteroid roughly 12 kilometers wide hit the Yucatan Peninsula at around 20 kilometers per second. The energy released was billions of times more powerful than any nuclear weapon ever built. If you were anywhere within about 1,500 kilometers of the impact, you were dead immediately. The shock wave flattened everything. Beyond that radius, things didn't get that much better. They just got slower. The impact launched billions of tons of rock and dust into the atmosphere, which blocked
That's really a time in which you did not want to be around, you know?
sunlight globally for years. Then, the sulfur from vaporized rock mixed with water vapor and came down as acid rain that poisoned water sources across entire continents. The food chain collapsed from the bottom up. Plants couldn't photosynthesize without sunlight, so they all just died. Herbivores starved because the plants were gone, and the predators followed. And the oceans weren't really any better. The acid rain and temperature changes killed phytoplankton, which is the base of the entire marine food web.
I'm still trying to figure out, in between all of this going on, all these dinosaurs dying and everything, where did humankind, like where were the humans when this was going on?
Fires spread across multiple continents in the days following the impact, triggered by superheated debris raining back down through the atmosphere. And the smoke from those fires added to the dust that was already blocking the sun. For months after the impact, the sky was essentially just black. The temperature swings were so extreme that regions went from tropical to near freezing in weeks, and anything that couldn't burrow underground or survive underwater had almost no chance. About 75% of all species on Earth went extinct, including non-avian dinosaur, every pterosaur, every marine reptile, and most of the large animals that had dominated the planet for over 100 million years. The animals that survived were mostly small because they could burrow underground, eat dead organic matter, or go longer periods without food. Mammals, birds,
So 5% of the population survived, so I guess humans was in that population.
crocodilians, turtles, small lizards, and insects, they made it through. But the recovery took millions of years, and for the species that were alive during the actual impact and its aftermath, every single day was a question of whether there would be anything left to eat the next day. At number 2, the Toba supervolcano, 74,000 years ago. This one
Oh yeah, that's another huge thing you do not want to be around whenever something like that happens. You know, a super volcano, bro. That's like, man, I remember learning about that. That could like cause like ash to go in the sky so much to where like you can't see nothing, where airplanes can't take off and everything. So a super volcano is no joke, bro. It could literally cause a lot of ash to go in the atmosphere to where nobody could do much, you know, and it probably get everybody sick, you know?
One is specifically about humans, and it's the closest our species ever came to extinction. Around 74,000 years ago, the Toba supervolcano in what is now Indonesia erupted with a force that makes every other volcanic eruption in human history look like a campfire. It launched over 2,800 cubic kilometers of material into the atmosphere, which is roughly enough to bury the entire United States under a layer of ash. The eruption triggered a volcanic winter that lasted somewhere between 6 and 10 years. Global temperatures dropped by as much as 15 degrees Celsius, and same as with the asteroid, the sunlight was blocked, which killed plants and made predators starve. But unlike 66 million years ago, this time we were now living through it.
And that's a whole nother reason why it's such a bad time to be in around that time, you know what I'm saying? Is because, like, you know, you gotta think to yourself, you know, you have a whole lot of ash that's blocking out the sunlight, so you can't grow your own food or nothing. You gotta go find food, probably from the animals and stuff, like you know. But man, that's a crazy time, bro.
We're already a relatively small population of early Homo sapiens living in Africa and possibly parts of Asia, and we got hit with the worst climate crisis human had ever faced. The total human population dropped to somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000 individuals, trying to survive in a world where the sun barely came through and there was nothing.
Wow, so around that time they only had 3 to 10,000 humans actually living on Earth around that time? Bro, that's crazy.
Thing to eat. Every single person alive today is descended from that tiny group of survivors, including you. The genetic bottleneck is so tight that humans have less genetic diversity than most primate species, and Toba is the leading explanation for why. If you were alive during those years, you spent your entire existence searching for whatever you could find in a dying landscape, while your group got smaller and smaller every season. Hunting was nearly impossible because the animals you depended on were starving too, and many of them simply died out in your area. You ate shellfish, roots, insects, whatever was left on the coastlines.
Bro, I don't know about y'all, but I don't think I would have been eating no insects
that still had any life to them at all. The fact that anyone survived is genuinely difficult to explain, and some researchers think it all came down to a handful of coastal populations in southern Africa that could still access marine food sources when everything inland was gone. And at number 1, the Permian extinction, 252 million years ago.
Bro, I have never heard of this one. So this is going to be pretty interesting to me because I've never heard of this one before.
This is the big one. The worst thing that has ever happened to life on Earth. Scientists call it the Great Dying. And the name is not dramatic enough for what actually happened. 252 million years ago, a volcanic system in what is now Siberia, known as the Siberian Traps, started erupting. And it wasn't a single volcano. It was a volcanic province the size of Western Europe that poured lava across millions of square kilometers for roughly...
Well, that must have been one of the worst times too, right there. It had to be.
A million years. The eruptions released an estimated 100,000 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, along with massive amounts of sulfur dioxide, methane, and other gases that turned the planet into something barely recognizable. Global temperatures rose by about 10 degrees Celsius. The oceans warmed up so much they couldn't hold dissolved oxygen anymore, turning vast stretches of deep water into dead zones. Hydrogen sulfide, a gas that is toxic to most life, started bubbling up from these oxygen-starved oceans into the atmosphere. The ozone layer was damaged by the chemical reactions, allowing increased ultraviolet radiation to reach the surface, which mutated plant spores and killed vegetation across entire continents. The numbers are almost impossible to process. About 96% of all marine species disappeared. 70% of...
So think about that. 96% of everything that is in the ocean went away. Didn't have it no more. That's crazy.
Terrestrial vertebrates went extinct. Even insects, which had survived every other mass extinction in Earth's history, lost more than half of their families. The entire ecosystem didn't just collapse, it ceased to exist. Coral reefs vanished completely and didn't recover for 10 million years. Forests disappeared from the tropics and were replaced by fungal blooms feeding on the dead wood. If you were alive during the Permian extinction, here's what your world would have looked like. The air
Man, that's crazy, bro. I tell you that, that's real crazy to even think that something like that would have happened. You know what I'm saying? Like,
was hot, thick with CO2, and in coastal areas, poisonous from hydrogen sulfide seeping out of the ocean. The sky had a strange greenish tint from all the gas, and the smell was unbearable. The water was warm and oxygen-pleated, killing everything that couldn't surface to breathe. Rivers and lakes turned stagnant and toxic. Acid rains stripped vegetation from the land until entire landscapes were just bare rock and mud. The soil eroded into the landscape in massive quantities, further smothering marine life. The temperatures were so extreme that in equatorial regions, nothing complex could survive on land at all, with surface temperatures reaching over 50 degrees Celsius in some areas, and the only habitable zones were pushed toward the poles, which had gone.
well, I think I kind of understand why this is number one, because this looked like it might have been the worst time to be around, because everything was getting depleted around that time, it seemed like.
From frozen to temperate. The recovery took somewhere between 5 and 10 million years. For context, the entire existence of the genus Homo, from the earliest human ancestor to you watching this right now, spans about 2.8 million years. The Earth was.
Now, you see how he said between me and that monkey? I'm not no monkey, so I don't know what it means. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't believe in that evolution type stuff, you know?
Essentially broken for at least twice as long as humans have existed. Life did eventually come back, and the survivors went on to become the ancestors of dinosaurs, mammals, and everything else that followed. But for those millions of years during and after the Great Dying, the planet was as close to sterile as it has ever been since life first appeared over 3 billion years ago. These were the 5
Man, that's crazy, though. I tell you what, bro, I would have never wanted to come up in no kind of situation like those. I tell you that, that's crazy.